Hi, fifth graders, it's Mrs. Clark. Today we're going to take a look at our next ancient and world culture on pre-Columbian civilizations. So if you've chosen this culture as your next one to study, make sure you go to the hyperdoc first and complete the pre-assessment before you watch any of the lessons in this unit. Our table of contents for this unit include the pre-Columbian geography, as well as a look at the comparisons of the pre-Columbian civilizations and their accomplishments. We will be looking at the Olmec, the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. So our first section is on pre-Columbian geography. The term pre-Columbian refers to the time before Columbus. Pre-Columbian, pre-Columbus, before Columbus came to the Americas. Mesoamerica, or Middle America, is a geographic area that extends from about the middle of present-day Mexico to the central part of Central America. Together, these terms are used to describe the important civilizations that existed around Mexico and Central America before Columbus's time. You can see on the two maps there, highlighted in white on the bottom, the area of Mexico and Central America, as well as a closer picture of the countries in Central America. At different times, the Olmec, Mayan, Inca, and Aztec all developed complex civilizations which existed in this area of Mesoamerica, which is now central Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, and parts of Honduras and Nicaragua. And you can see in the map there, labeled where all of the ancient civilizations of our pre-Columbian existed, as well as a timeline of when these cultures existed at their height of power. Let's talk about the actual geographic features of this land, because this land has a varied landscape. It has rugged mountains and plateaus in the center and long coastlines containing swamps, rivers, and tropical rainforests. A lot of diversity in land. Let's take a look at the Mayan really quick. The Mayan Empire settled in the Yucatan Peninsula, which forms the southeastern border of the Gulf of Mexico. You can see in the maps there, the Gulf of Mexico is at the southern part of the United States, and the Yucatan Peninsula juts out there in that yellowish color off of Mexico and Central America. The Yucatan Peninsula lacks rivers because of its composition of limestone. So in order to get to the fresh drinking water that the people needed who settled there, they relied upon sinkholes. And these sinkholes, or cenotes, allowed them to access the fresh water in the underground streams and caves. So they were essentially large holes dug into the ground so they could access the fresh water underground. And you can see some pictures there of them where people are so big people can actually swim in them. Let's look at the Incan. The Inca settled in South America along the western side of the Andes Mountains. You can see the Andes Mountains there on the map. They extend from the north part of South America all the way down the coastline to the bottom. The Andes are the longest mountain chain in the world, and they make for a harsh living environment. The Amazon River flows through this area. It's the second longest river in the world, and it flowed through part of the vast Incan Empire. And you can see there on the map an aerial view of the Amazon River, as well as where it's located on the South American map on the right. So let's take a look at a recap of geography of the pre-Columbian civilizations. How does the geography influence a culture's trade and communication with other cultures? So after being driven out of northern Mexico, the Aztecs finally settled on a small and swampy island in Lake Texcoco. The lake offered them protection and a source of food. However, the island isolated them from the mainland, and there was no farmland. In order to solve this problem, the Aztecs created causeways, or land bridges, that connected the island to the land, and chinapas, or human-made islands, on which the farmers grew their crops. So since we're done with this section on the pre-Columbian geography, you need to pause the video now and go to your hyperdoc and make sure you complete all the activities that go with the lessons on pre-Columbian geography before you continue any more in our video onto the next section. Our next section is going to take a look at the comparisons of our 4 pre-Columbian civilizations and their individual accomplishments. So let's take a look at the Olmec first. The Olmec, who existed from about the 1200s BCE to 400 BCE, were the first great civilization of Mesoamerica. They lived along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, surrounded by rainforests, grasslands, and swamps. And you can see there on the map where the Olmec settled. As a result of the geography, the Olmec were farmers, hunters, and fishermen. The Olmec civilization is sometimes called the mother culture or mother civilization of Mesoamerica because the Olmec influenced all the Mesoamerica civilizations that were to follow them. They created a number system, a form of writing, and a calendar that other civilizations would use and improve upon. Let's take a look at the Mayan. The Maya existed from about 1000 BCE to the 1500s CE. Through cultural borrowing from the Olmec, they designed and constructed its cities to pay tribute to the gods who they believed ruled the Mayan life. So they borrowed a lot of their teachings from the Olmec who came before them. Like the Olmec, the Mayan government was a theocracy, and the leader and ruling classes were believed to represent the will of the gods. The Mayan built many structures: palaces, plazas, baths, reservoirs, and temples. One of their most famous cities was Tikal, and its ruins can still be visited today. They developed a complex written system and a complex counting system, which was based on the number 20. They are also believed to be the first people to think of the idea of zero. Moving on to the Aztec. The Aztec settled from about 1200s BCE to about 1500 CE. They were known as the last great civilization of ancient Mesoamerica. They were the first civilization in the pre-Columbia Mesoamerica civilization to create a great empire. Like the Olmec and the Mayans, the Aztec based their economy on farming and built great stone structures. They built a city in Lake Texcoco, like we talked about earlier, as well as little islands that you can see there in the pictures, the chinapas, to accommodate their people. They built floating islands on which to farm. The Aztecs then built these causeways or large land bridges that you can see there in the upper picture extending outward that connected their island where they lived to the mainland so they could trade with other people in order to get the wood and stone they needed for building their palaces and temples. Pretty innovative. An emperor was believed to have spoken with the gods and ruled over the Aztec society. And lastly, we will talk about the Incas. The Incas lived from about 1200 CE to 1500 CE. They built a vast empire in South America due to their system of allowing conquered people to keep their government or ruler in place if they pledged their loyalty to the Inca. They created a highly structured government that allowed them to keep track of all of the people in their vast empire. And you can see there in the map where their culture existed down the coast of South America. They were expert stonemasons and were able to use enormous stones to craft into city buildings. One of their most amazing accomplishments was their road engineering. They built more than 14,000 miles of roads to connect their empire together. There were no beasts of burden. They didn't have any domesticated animals like horses and cows. So if something had to be transported, they had to move it on their backs or move it by canoes. They didn't have animals to help them build and move things. So let's wrap up our comparison of the pre-Columbian civilizations and accomplishments. How have math and science discoveries affected our life? The Mayans developed two types of calendars. One of them had 365 days, just like our modern day calendar. They used this calendar to track when to plant and harvest crops and when season flooding would occur. The Mayan civilization also developed the concept of zero, which they used to accurately record trade information. This has become an important mathematical concept that we still use today. How did the Silk routes encourage cultures to depend on each other? How have cultures benefited through interdependence? Well, the Olmec are called the mother civilization because many other innovations were used and adapted by later civilizations throughout Mesoamerica. They started it all and got the ball rolling, and everyone else after them built upon and borrowed their ideas to make them even better. Archaeologists and historians believe that the Olmec's religion, architecture, and technology spread by cultural borrowing when the Olmec interacted with other civilizations throughout trade. So they traded goods and traded ideas. Much of the Olmec culture was borrowed and absorbed by the Mayan civilization later. Well, that's it for our lessons on the pre-Columbian civilizations. Make sure that you now stop the video and complete all sections of the hyperdoc in your Google Classroom. Make sure that it's complete before you turn it in. You may use any information that you recorded or found in your hyperdoc to assist you with your assessment that you need to take upon the conclusion of your hyperdoc in this video. Make sure you go back and rewatch and study any information that you might need to hear again and submit everything to Google Classroom when you are done. I hope you enjoyed our lessons on pre-Columbian civilizations, and I'll see you guys in the next video.